Okay, so I believe that is us live. So first of all, welcome to another Q&A from Leighton Orient. It's been a while since we last did one of these, so there's been a lot that's been updated in that time. Tonight we'll be joined by Nigel Travis, Kent Teague, Martin Ling, and Danny Macklin. We've had loads of questions in from you already, and if you haven't put any questions in yet, but you've got something really keen to ask, then there's a comments box on the right-hand side where you can sit your questions in, and we'll try our best to get to as many of these as possible. First of all, anyone want to say hello?
Yeah, I'll kick off. Look, firstly, hi to all our fans again. Thank you for your ongoing support. It's fantastic. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, many of whom watch these. I mean, your support is tremendous, and we really appreciate it, particularly when we hear that other clubs are struggling to find both fans, season ticket holders, and sponsors. So very much appreciated, and we'll be, as we always are, very candid and straightforward in our answers tonight.
Thank you, Nigel. Well, with that, then we'll get stuck straight in. We've had emails, loads of questions coming from email. One from Brian. He's asked, so good evening. After a wonderful streaming of the Spurs match, why is the West Ham match not being streamed? The quality was first-class practice, made perfect, but Northampton feel that after, sorry, it's not a very clear question, but Northampton was a very poor quality stream. So who'd like to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that, because streaming is absolutely critical to us this year, and perhaps yourself and Danny jump in. So just to stand back from it all, give a little bit of history. When we were in the National League, we spent 2 years fighting the National League to do streaming at all. We had some really strange experiences and some good experiences, but we learned a lot. And I think a lot of people know that David Travis, my son, but on the board, is an expert in the field. So we feel that that's very helpful. David has had a vision of trying to take streaming forward. And part of that vision is to create the studio that you briefly saw last week. And I think, Luke, it got great response, as the question says, from Brian. So we're in a situation now where we want to completely upgrade, as David calls it, end to end. So we're going to be testing on Wednesday night, on Saturday, when we have a new fixture, a change fixture against Gillingham. We want to test the whole thing. It's a bit like a dress rehearsal times 2, and we're going to be doing things that may fail. So we don't want to give fans a bad experience. So that's why we're not streaming those 2 games. I think, Luke, it's going to still go out on audio.
Yep.
But that's the simple reason. We don't want people to go in, have a bad experience, and then not sign up. And I think the only way to truly test this is to do a full game twice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fans may not like it, but we want to try and get what is right for all the competitive games, starting with the game away at Forest Green Rovers. Danny, anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. I think that in relation to the comment about Northampton, we were as equally frustrated. We were obviously waiting at home for that. An external supplier that had been contracted to supply the service, if I'm honest, let us down. But thankfully, they quickly were to resolve that. And yeah, I think after that, we didn't have any problems. But yeah, apologies for those problems. But the product that they saw on Saturday, won't be the product that we are very much excited to be able to launch in the very near future, along with other packages.
But I think we should say that was a feed that Northampton were giving us.
Correct.
So I don't want anyone to think that we had a supplier problem. Northampton asked if we would allow them to stream the game, and they wanted to learn from it. So that was the main reason why it was not the quality that we do.
Yeah. Okay, I'll stick on streaming for now whilst we're here. And this one's from Dale Halls, and it's quite a long, convoluted one. So bear with me if I get any of it pronounced a bit wrong. But first of all, thank you for this. The Q&A session has been brilliant, keeping fans in the picture. I was wondering how much you had planned on selling the stream for on a game-to-game basis. The season tickets have always been a way of saving money if you plan to go to every home game, and this was indeed a selling point of the early bird promotion. An adult season pass at the South Stand is $330, works out at $14.34 a game, and $360 for one's purchase after that, $15.65 a game. Therefore, the stream should be priced more than that per game in order to make the promise correct. What is the attendance we are aiming for with social? I think that's probably a different question actually, so we'll park that one for now. But okay, Danny, if we come to you on that one regarding season tickets and the pricing for streaming passes.
Yeah, I think there's a number of factors in this. We don't set the prices. The EFL clubs do that, and the EFL board ultimately set the prices for the UK as well as for overseas. So the price points of all of that we'll be able to publicise, we think, in the next day or two. That's just going through EFL ratification before that's promoted by us and other clubs. We want to make sure and want to stress that we hope at this stage that very few games in the league will be played behind closed doors. The hope and the expectation from the government of what they're saying at the moment is that early October we will see a return of crowds. We grow in optimism that that will happen. Obviously, it's a cautious optimism. Lots can change in that time, but there is certainly a desire from us, from every other club, from the EFL, from the Premier League, from the government, most importantly, to return to action as safely as we possibly can, with a crowd there, again, albeit restricted numbers, of somewhere around about 25 to 30% of a capacity. So, yeah, we want to make sure we provide as much value for season card holders as we possibly can. And there'll be a number of mechanisms we will have in place to recognise that loyalty that they've shown us over the recent weeks and months and even years before that.
I think it's worth saying, Danny, that we would not have voted in favour of the pricing, and we didn't, but the league has to go on a majority vote on all this. And so I think some of the points that are made in the question are very good points. So,
yeah.
But we have to follow the league's line in pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay, we might come back onto streaming later on, but for now we'll move on a bit. We've had a couple of questions with regards to what we plan to do with programs for the season ahead. Graham Goodall's asked, will we have a printed paper for the paper program for the Mansfield game? It will be some consolation when we watch online. It's probably a question I can answer actually myself. We aren't looking at doing printed programs whilst behind closed doors. We sat and looked at the cost of it and the resource of it, especially with additional resource going towards planning and executing a new essentially TV show with the streaming service. So we won't be doing a printed program at this stage. We will monitor it as we go on in terms of support or feedback. We will be providing a kind of digital match pack each week, which will feature a lot of what you would usually get in a match program. It won't be quite as long, I guess, as a regular one, but it'll be something that's a lot more cost effective for the club in a time where obviously we need to be a bit more financially prudent. So understand that'll be a disappointment to some people, and we will look to review that as we go on. But yeah, unfortunately, with the kind of situation we're in, it was kind of a forced hand for us with that one, Graham.
And Luke, I'll just add to that. Obviously, the programs, the reality is we have to go to print, as you know, because you're the one along with Dan that sign it off. We go to print typically on a Wednesday. So by the time you printed it, there's a lot of articles that become out of date. And if we were having to print it and dispatch it, the reality is that program will be printed probably with the way the schedules are, 2 games before. So comments from Ross and players, would have been, at least a week old.
Yeah, and to that as well, I think with a digital program, I think we were monitoring closely how the Premier League did it during the restart.
I think, Luke, it's worth saying that a lot of people are probably sitting here having a conspiracy theory about this, that this is our way of getting rid of programs. And I know from discussions that we have every intention to get programs back as they would normally be and have traditionally been in football, as long as we get the crowds. But, this is a unique situation. Yeah,
very much so. And I think just coming on to digital programs as well, there is a lot that can be done with them, in terms of having videos involved and making them a lot more kind of reader friendly on phones and devices. So we'll be making the efforts to make sure that they are they are as good as possible. And yeah, during that short time, when we are monitoring things, that they're still a good product. So yeah, that's the answer for that one for now. One that's coming from Dave Morby, and I guess this will be quite a wider question. So maybe coming to you to begin with, Martin, is how will the funding of the academy be affected by the salary cap?
It won't be affected in any way. The funding that we get from the Football League remains the same, and our contribution on top of that as a club will remain the same. So the funding for the academy is exactly the same as it was last year. But there's also, I think there's an understanding that we have to spend wisely. So every penny that's spent at academy or anywhere within the football club has got to be looked at and make sure it's spent in a productive way. But at the moment, the academy remains the same. It's still producing players into our first team. It's still producing players that we sell on. So at this moment in time, it doesn't affect it, Luke.
So one thing I'd like to say, Luke, and this came out of a meeting that Danny and I had with the spectators at Loft and their representatives, is they were asking about the academy, and we said we think we as a club need to do a better job of telling everyone when the games are and encourage more fans to go and see the academy. I mean, Kent goes when he's over. By the way, we'd both like to be over, but when we are over, we try and go and see the academy games, and basically if there's 10 people, that's a big crowd. So we think as part of supporting the development of these young players, it'd be good if more fans made the effort to go to Woodford and see the games, which of course are free. And they're at the old Whitbread, I say old, it's probably still called it, the Whitbread ground in Woodford.
Yep, thank you for that one. Coming down to a question from Nicholas Robbins, who's emailed in to say, with Brentford being a great example that you do not need to spend a lot of money, but use statistics to create a great team, would the directors ever consider using the Moneyball formula to help the team be more successful in terms of transfers and building a winning team? It's actually some discussions we've had probably this week, actually, Nigel, on certain calls. So I don't know if yourself or Martin want to start on that one.
I mean, I don't mind starting. I mean, I know the Brentford model inside out. Obviously, a pal of mine was the manager there for a little while in terms of Dean, and there was statistics used, but there was a mix of statistics and old methods of scouting to make sure you got the right players. As a football club, if I give an example of signing a player, I think that when I first come into the club, it would have been probably 80% watching the player, speaking to other people about the players, and 20% of statistics. I think that's now spun on its head, where I would say that it's 60% statistics and 40% players. So if we've got a list of 10 players, we will run statistics through them players, and we will run what we know about that player, whether I've seen him, whether Steve Foster's seen him, or one of our scouts has seen him. But the statistics for us is a tool that we use. We've got Joe Austin and a lad called Charlie Jewell who do both statistics on recruitment and statistics and video stuff on team shape and the like. So yeah, I think we're quite modern in our thinking. Certainly a lot more modern than where we were when we first walked in. I don't believe there's a method where you just sign a player off of statistics in terms of Moneyball. I've read the book. It's a very good book, and I think it works with baseball. I don't know a lot about baseball, but I thought it worked with baseball where they did it. But I do believe there's a big role to play in making us better, both as a team and as signing players, which will then lead us to be a better team. That's how I see it from my side of things.
Yep. Okay. Well, sticking in terms of football and recruitment, we've got a question from Paul Morant who's asked, now that Roel has signed a contract, does that mean our transfer targets alter, or are we still after a centre-back and a forward?
I think that our targets will probably probably alter. I think that we've now got 6 strikers within the building, with Raw signing up. There's a lot of, I think I should cross the Raw bridge as well. A lot of people saying maybe held the club to demands and held a gun to our head and all them type of things. Nothing's further from the truth. The boy was advised at the start that there was other clubs interested in him. He chose, along by the advice of someone that was representing him, not to come in to train. We felt that was the wrong option to take. He then phoned us after 2 days and said, "I think I've done a wrong move. I want to come and train and train with the club." And when he came into the club, he bought into the project. He was given a contract. I'd say there's 3 bases of contracts. What I see, there's a contract for a young player, a contract for a player that's got potential, and then there's then there was probably 4. Then you got a player that's starting to fulfill his potential, and then there's a group of players that have fulfilled their potential. I just felt that he was trying to jump from one basis and miss out the second base and go straight to the third base in terms of what he was looking for financially. But once he showed an aptitude to want to be in and around us, showed us what he was about, showed us he wanted to be here, it was quite easy to get the contract over the line, to be totally honest. It was he come to, like any contract, you meet in the middle. His people will demand high figures, I suppose. Me as a director of football would offer low figures, and then we meet in the middle, and that's exactly what happened at Raw's contract. And I'm delighted to have him on board. I believe it could be the next Koroma or Bon. I do believe that, but he has got a bit of work to do, and he's a little bit behind them in terms of he's only played 18 games in his career. But the 18 games have been very good, and there's a lot of positive signs. So, put that to bed. Raw's totally with us. We're totally on board with Raw. He has now got a contract, and I look forward to him scoring goals for us again next season.
Cheers, Martin. And then on the back end of that question was about targets of centre back and a forward. Is that still the case? Because that was what we spoke about before Raw being in.
No, with Raw being here now, we've got 24 players at the club at the moment. We feel like we're covered in all positions, but we do feel there may develop. We lost Marvin Ekpatita. We haven't replaced Marvin Ekpatita, but we've also seen Joe Widdowson, who wants to play both as a left back and a centre half, and I think he's been really, really good at centre half. So I think for me, our window doesn't shut to the 19th of October. We will look how Joe Widdowson does as a left-sided centre half or a left. We know what he can do at left back. Before we go into the market, but I think also we've probably got we've got a little bit of money left in our budget, but I don't know where the problem is going to really arise, because some of that will be down to injury, and if I get an injury in a position where we get one injury, it may be there where we have to go and spend the money. That's why we have good connections with Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, them type of clubs to make sure. So it won't be a striker, because we've got 6 of them, as I just said. But centre half is a position that we look at the moment, and maybe it's a position where we may be one light. But let's say that will develop over the next. We've still got to the 19th of October. We've still got 2 months, so we've still got plenty of time, and we don't want to dive in and get it wrong. We want to take our time. Very happy with the squad as it is, but if we need a couple of little top-ups, we want to make sure we've got them in the right areas, Luke, to be honest.
Yeah. Thanks, Martin. Moving back towards off-the-field matters, we've had a question from Neil Irvine, who's asked, please could Kent and Nigel provide further details on the recent updates displayed at Company's House, which suggest new investment and possibly Kent reducing his shareholding?
Okay, so let me start and then Kent will carry on. So the first thing everyone needs to do, and you've already heard this, that COVID this year is going to cost us about 1.5 million extra against what we originally thought this season's budget should be. It keeps moving around because it depends on how many games we're going to be playing behind closed doors, etc., etc. So it's a moving feast, and something else we've addressed in the past is the quality of our financial management. I would have to say, thanks to the work that Lindsay's done, and also Simon Blake, who I think I introduced at the annual general meeting, I feel as good as I've ever felt about the financial management of Leyton Orient. The second thing is we were successful in bringing in new investors in the past season, which showed up in the account, and we continue to look for new investors. And the meetings that were referred to earlier were with new investors. They took place last week. So it's important that we keep having the flow of money coming into the club, because we continue to lose a lot of money every year. But what that does is it impacts the percentage ownerships. And that's something that you're going to see every year. And that's reflected in what goes into Companies House. As a small, complete deflection away from the subject, one thing that many people may not know in the UK is private companies like Eagle and even Leyton Orient, their accounts aren't published. Here in the US, they're all private. And in the US, there's this thing called private companies and public companies. And if you wanted to find out the accounts of Leyton Orient in the US, you couldn't. But in the UK, we have an open system. That's why you have access to it. And that's why when we have the annual meeting, we try and be as transparent as we can. I would actually say very transparent. So that's why things move around. Ken?
Yeah, I guess recently there have been a couple of filings on Companies House, and they just basically show that dilution that's happening by us bringing in additional investors. That's just what's happening. There shouldn't be any concern or anything like that. It's all good.
You're not leaving us.
Sorry?
You're not leaving us then.
No, I didn't buy another company in London in April so that I would leave needing a reason to go to London. So I'm all right. We'll be all right. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, good to hear. Moving back to a question more kind of academy focused was, will we be seeing any youth team players feature this season or even in pre-season matches?
Yeah, I mean, what we've had to do, because we've had to have a COVID bubble over the training ground, and the youth team have trained away from us. So what we looked at the other day, we just felt that, because what normally happens if Ross needs to top the sides up, or a coach needs a couple of players, we go to the youth team and fetch them over. We wasn't allowed to do that. So what we chose to do was we put five of the youth team players, we put them on within the bubble, so they've been COVID tested. You will see two of them involved on Wednesday night against West Ham. So yeah, we're always looking. What we see is our second year scholars, who's got a chance to go to the next level. Can they handle coming over with us to start with to train? When I say, well, over with Ross and the first team, and if they handle that, then we can move them into games. So yeah, I think it's very important that we've done that, and two of them out of them five that have been COVID tested will be actually. I think Ross is playing 2 45-minute teams on Wednesday. So two of them, one plays in the first half, one plays in the second half. There'll also be a few, the other three COVID tested youth team players will be subs for both 11s. So come on when we need it. So there'll be at least 5 of the youth team players that get changed this Wednesday. So yeah, we'll always, I mean, I went to the training ground today. You know, my day's always having a look. I often have a little walk outside. I looked at Ross's session and what was going on, and there wasn't much going on because of the Monday after a game. So I went and had a look at the youth team, and it was really pleasing to watch 2 of our ex-players take coaching sessions, in terms of Alex Lawless and Brian Sarr taking and leading on that, and watching what the tempo was like. And I've always got my finger on the pulse in terms of who's are the good ones over there and who's the ones that can possibly come over to see if they can hold their own in the first team environment.
So Martin, let me ask you a question. I know the answer, but this is going to be a tough year. You've got a lot of midweek games. How do you think the youth team players are going to feature, given the demands and injuries that we're inevitably going to get?
Yeah, I think that you've got to look at that there will be youth team players that are going to be involved, Nigel. Simple as that. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot more of a squad system this year. I don't think there ain't one player that I believe can play every game for Leyton Orient this season because of the magnitude of how quick they're going to be coming at us. Obviously, we've got the loan market, but I'm also a firm believer that we should look within before we look outside. So I do feel that there will be youth team players end up with squad numbers this year. It may be the fact that they are going to be on the bench. You also got, which was the leasing, the EFL Trophy games. We've got 4 of them coming up, which I think that there may be a chance to, blood a couple of them in them type of games. So I think more than ever, they're nearer to the first team and they actually realise at this moment in time, Nigel.
Well, Martin, we've solved the injury problem, right, Martin? So we're not going to have any injuries this year, right?
I believe that we've got.
I mean, yeah, it's not just the number of games, right? It's not just how thick and fast they come. It's also that every once in a while somebody might get injured. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity. I'm sorry, Nigel. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry about that.
No. I mean, I was going to say, in the dreadful year before we took over, when we went down to the National League, I mean, you probably saw youth team players be thrown in ridiculously. I mean, I know Kent didn't see that year, and Danny didn't. In fact, everyone else on here probably didn't see it. Martin may have seen the odd game, but it was tough, and they were overused. So it's a balance.
I don't know about that, Nigel. Somebody shared their login to the stream for me the previous year, but I think that might have been you. I remember watching them play. Like, I remember Miles Judd, and I remember some of those players, that Karoma, for example. I remember watching them. It's hard when they're thrown into the deep end without a ladder, is the way we say it in America. But yeah, it was tough.
I just think. Sorry, not Ken. I think it's very important I think it's very important that we do that at the right time. The injury side of things, I feel that we're in a better place in terms of the people that we've got in charge of the sports science and But the be all and end all is when you're playing games Saturday, Tuesday, the one thing that's going to be tired, and you look at the people when they come back from COVID in terms of the Premier League, it's tired muscles. So we've got to be smart and bright in that department this year.
So it's a whole year of the National League schedule.
Yeah. We're back to that.
Okay, I'm glad we're not in that schedule anymore. I just brought it up. I didn't mean it. I'll go back on mute. Sorry. Bye.
We're moving on from that one then. A question from Darren, who said, how can you justify investing scarce funds on an over-bloated coaching setup when once again you fail to adequately invest in the team with new blood and talent on the pitch where it really matters?
I'm going to take that one first because over-bloated is we are actually one person lighter than we had last year. I think this comes down to Matt Harold coming into the building. Matt has come into the building as a learning development coach, but Matt's main job this year is to go and watch our opposition. So, for instance, Matt will go and watch Oldham in the Cup to do a match report for us and have a trained eye on the opposite. It's something that I felt we were short of a little bit. We've done a lot of work with scouts, but I wanted to the job that I did for Dean Smith when he was managing Walsall when I was out of work. I used to go and watch his opposition and then present for Dean on a Thursday at their training ground about how that team would play on a Saturday. And to improve us, that's what Matt Harold is doing. Matt is a learning coach. Matt Harold is going to be trained. He actually goes over to Chigwell School 2 afternoons a week, within the week, because that's something we have to do for our training ground. So Matt is over there. Matt is a learning coach. Matt's main job is to go away and watch the team. We've got a manager or a first team coach. We've got an assistant coach. We've got a goalkeeping coach. Yeah, that's exactly as it should be. And I call Matt Howard my Swiss Army knife because he will do plenty of different roles from going over to put some training session on for Chickapool School. He would do a little bit of coaching in and around us and learning. But his main job, Matt's got a very good eye, and he will come and report back how the team play and expect them to play on a Saturday. So we're not overbloated. We're not wasting money. We actually got less coaches this year than we had last year.
Yeah.
So Martin, you handled that very calmly. It kind of got me fired up a bit. So let me just explain a bit more. So if I look at any company I'm involved in, and I'm involved in a lot of companies, one of the things you need to do continually is to think about succession. And we sat down with Martin and Ross last year and said, what do we need in terms of improving the coaching squad and to give us cover? The first thing is we said we need someone who is nothing to do with Leyton Orient as an assistant head coach. And Ross, who I want to take this opportunity to say, Ross impresses me more and more every week. He's unbelievably helpful, thoughtful. And one of the first things he did was talk to Ken, Matt, Porter, Martin, myself, Danny, about how we screwed up the Carl Fletcher situation. You know, what were the mistakes we made? And we made, let's be honest, we made a lot of mistakes. So he took that and said, okay, we need someone who is not in the club. How do we do it properly? He then put a process together. And I think, Martin, he had, was it 5 candidates?
Yeah.
And then he went down gradually to, I think it was 3, and ended up choosing from one of 2. And we brought in Danny Sender. And Danny is black, which was actually a benefit because it showed our process worked. He was someone who didn't know anything about Leyton Orient. He's obviously a very good defender from his history, and he's going to work hard on defense. And Martin, I think, also set plays. Is that right?
Yeah, that's two areas that we talked about, and Danny's two areas that Danny's very comfortable in. Yes.
So we did that, but at the same time, we also identified that Matt Harold, who we decided not to give a contract to, had a lot of skills, and we thought he could be someone who could be really helpful to Leyton Orient Football Club in the future. And it didn't take any money away. In fact, we chipped away at all the other budgets to create money for Matt. And just to finish the question, and I'll get it all off my chest, we're right up towards the top end of the salary cap. As Martin said, we do have some money still available, but I think everyone has to recognize that all clubs now have a salary cap, which we fully supported. And if you haven't read it, I had an article a few days ago in the Evening Standard. And the idea of that is to help move all football, not just Leyton Orient, towards a sustainable position in the future. I think this all fitted brilliantly. And even though I got fired up, I'm pleased I had a chance to answer the question, because I keep reading, well, this is a job for the old boys. This is a job for people that Martin and Ross know. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, this is a way of getting a club that is united, a club that has a plan. And the reason Danny is there is to give us some outside-in perspective.
And I think as well, Martin, was probably worth noting is that with Joby this year, he's obviously probably moved away from a coaching role to a more playing side, right?
Yeah, I think with Joby, it's important that we want him to play. The man's a walking miracle. I don't understand it. I don't understand how he does pre-season training and he's at the front of pre-season training. I don't get it. But there is some freaks out there, and physically he is a freak. But we just felt that his playing credentials, he's the way he runs the dressing room in terms of the playing dressing room was more important than coaching this year. We didn't want to come away from Joby's coaching because we still want him to be able to join him when we're doing a development afternoon. Joby can come to join the development afternoon to keep himself ticking along. You've also got to put into account Joby's media work, where he is. I mean, I watch him, and he's a freak, and he's very good at doing that. I hate that man. I really hate that man because he's a natural at that. And he wants to keep that bubbling along as well. So there we go. Joby's a player. He's an occasional coach. If Joby, like for instance, on Saturday, Joby wasn't involved in the team, or he wasn't going to come on as a sub, we ain't going to let Joby not put a grey top on or a black top and help out with what's going on during the day. So Joby sat up with me and Matt Harold, and Matt went up and spoke with Joe on the camera. So Joby but Joby just touches on, Joby is a player. If Joby can play 30 games this year and do a little bit of coaching, I'll be delighted. It'll be his choice in the future whether he wants to be a TV pundit or a manager or coach. That's down to him. But it's important that he is important to us. So we give him we believe, a more rounded role for him. Because when you become a coach, as Matt Harold keeps saying, I don't get home till 5 o'clock. Well, welcome to the coach's world. And when you look at your pay packet, it ain't as big as it used to be. Welcome to the coach's world. So Joby's still hanging on in that other world. But yeah, Joby's got a different role to play, and a very important role at that.
Thank you, Martin. A question which is another one from Graham. He's asked, we stated actually, Peter Allen's service to our club was quite remarkable. Our top appearance holder of all time, a record that was set in the 1970s and will never be broken. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we honoured Peter now while we're still lucky to have him with us? Is that something the club have considered?
Okay.
I'll take that one, Luke. It's something that we have discussed pre-COVID. If I'm honest, a number of things had to be paused, and at the appropriate time, we will look at ways. There's a number of legends, hence why we've called it the Legends Lounge at the Barrow Group Stadium. There's a number of ways that I think we can bring to life some of our very proud heritage and history, including the era of Martin Ling when he was manager and what have you. And yeah, we need to bring that to life.
If I have a statue, Dan, can I have it made of bronze, please?
Whatever you like.
Hey, Danny, you spoke out a term. Martin Ling's not getting a...
I was going to say, are we going to make a statue of Martin Ling actually running? Did he ever do that? I mean, did he ever run? I think we should put him in full bronze sprint if we're going to give him a statue. We're not putting a statue up of Martin Ling. No,
definitely not.
He does happen to be the only person in history to win promotion in 3 different job titles, but we'll give him that. We'll give him that, right?
In the Premier get power here.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, just back on Peter Allen. I'm looking him up because I've got Wikipedia, the source of all knowledge here. Yeah, Peter's actually older than me. I thought we were about the same age, actually. He's 73. He played 432 times for us, 27 goals. I remember him great fondness during that period, 65 to 78. I had a long chat with him year before last. We should certainly do something for him, and thanks for reminding us. And there's a number of people who write to me about some of these players going back even before my time, which started in 1959. And we try it the best we can. But I just want to say, as Danny mentioned, the last few months have been a nightmare operating under the conditions we've had. But we will get back to doing that.
Awesome. Thank you, Nigel. Question which is probably start with Danny on this one. Stadium capacity at the Barrow Group Stadium is just over 9,000 seats. With 3,000 season tickets sold and a group of others like myself yet to receive a call for it, what are the plans in place for when there are more season ticket holders than supporters allowed into the ground?
So first and foremost, if there is anyone that we've not contacted, I know that calls have taken place. There's a lot of people that we've called that have seen a number they don't recognise. So I'll urge those again to get in touch with us if we haven't been in touch with you in the recent past. Reassure anyone who's put in their application their seat is safe, their price is safe, and we are getting through that list of calls. There's very few now that are still to be processed, but if there are anyone, just let us know. And then in terms of the capacity, we are working through an exceptional amount of calculations and sums. We're working through that capacity potential, and we will be communicating with fans in the near future of the way that we will need to operate, as every club will be. And I was speaking to Nigel about this earlier today, and we want to be as safe and secure as we can. We'll be taking every measure and a bit more from what the government and the EFL guidelines give. So give as much confidence as we can to fans returning to the stadium. But I want to re-stress it will be season card holders that we will be prioritising. And I'm confident that we will be able to house, for much want of a better word, the vast majority of season card holders that want to attend the fixtures that have already secured their season card. And we're now probably over 3,300 season cards sold, which is absolutely unbelievable. And I can see that the pride on Kent's face there is remarkable. I speak to other League Two chief execs and equivalents of Nigel and Kent's at clubs, and they're staggered what we've got. But we've got a jigsaw puzzle to piece together now in terms of housing everyone as safely as we can, and more details of that will be announced in the next week or so, but certainly well in advance of the return of crowds.
Thank you, Danny. Just a quick one that I can answer from Beverly, who's asked about the Orient TV app, saying that there's certain issues with people not being able to log in at the moment. That has been raised with our supplier, and we are looking to get that fixed as soon as possible. So if you are on the Orient TV app and it's not working for you, just hold firm for now. We'll get that sorted as quickly as we can.
So Luke, let me just ask you a question. So when we get going with our new streaming service, you'll be able to watch it either on a computer. I'm currently doing this on MacBook Pro, so any laptop, on the phone, on iPads or other tablets, correct?
Yeah, and it might be a good time to kind of clarify what we know so far in terms of streaming and how it's going to work. And yeah, like you say, first of all, you can either do it on a laptop, or if you want to use a device, so either a phone, whether an iPhone or an Android or a tablet, then you'd have to download the Leyton Orient TV app, which is a stipulation from the EFL in terms of the way it's viewed. So it has to be through an app. So if you are looking to do that, that's the way to do that. And then, Danny, I think it's probably, in terms of what we've had in terms of guidance from the EFL so far with season card holders and voucher codes, is that something you want to go over?
Yep, so we'll be able to communicate with fans. So to clarify, season card holders will obviously get access to home league games as part of their season card package, and that will be very easily accessible via a unique code that will be provided. And again, more details on that will be given, along with real step-by-step guides. And we'll be testing that amongst fans well in advance of that. And we will make it crystal clear how people sign up. We'll be urging people to. We're going to bring a pre-game show. We'll be urging people to not log in at 2:55. That was one of the problems we had last year. We'll be urging fans to log in earlier, and not only will they have the benefit and the reassurance they're in, but they'll also be able to benefit from the pre-game show. So there'll be many reasons to be active well before 3 o'clock.
So you mentioned that. So let me ask you and Luke. So I know this is going to be a much longer show, isn't it? When's the pre-game show likely to start, Luke?
What we're planning to do is for the pre-game show to start half an hour before. We'll have a couple of features. We're looking to have Ollie Buck as our host, who people will know from hosting the O Show and briefly from that Spurs halftime appearance the other night. So Ollie will be our lead host throughout the season, and then throughout the campaign, we'll look to have different guests in the studio with Ollie. It'll be a mix of people. It will be sometimes ex-players. It will be sometimes we're speaking to local journalists as well, who have a knowledge of the game and a knowledge of Leyton Orient. Sometimes it could be members of the board, depending on who's available. So yeah, we're looking to have a real mix of people available in the studio. Half an hour before, and we'll lead into the game with commentary from Dave Victor and Matt as usual. Then into half time, we'll be back in the studio with Ollie and the guests just talking about the action. And then post match as well, we'll be looking to have another window, which probably won't be a necessarily tight on time, because we'll look to have Ross or a player up, especially when we're at home, to come up and talk to us after the game. So I think for us, and as Danny said before, we don't have much of a say on what price we can put down, but in terms of the value we give to our supporters, I think we were really keen to do as much as we can, and I think you'd probably be hard pushed to find another stream that will be as good as ours, hopefully, this season.
So one of the things I'd say, Luke, is this is such an important revenue stream, sorry about the pun, for us this year. But the one thing I'd ask everyone to do is if they can get friends, family signed up around the world, because I think this is something that everyone can do to support the club. I mean, we are trying to put a great product together, as he just explained, but there should be loads of people out there who we can send the link to, get them to sign up and become, hopefully, Leyton Orient fans.
Yeah, Nigel, we spoke about coaching staff. The reality is I haven't told you yet, but we've got 40,000 basically people that are ready to go as ambassadors, and they're our fans. It sounds a bit of a cliche, but everyone can play their part. Imagine if every fan on our database just watched, let alone recommend to anyone else. We want to go and do what our championship club is getting in terms of audience. I genuinely believe with the fan base that we've got and our position in London and our reputation, that we can eclipse all targets that we've set, and that's our very much our objective.
Yes. So just on that then, our first game is obviously Forest Green Rovers on the 5th of September. So we'll have the stream details very soon for people to get their passes purchased ahead of that one, which will be our first proper stream from the studio. And yeah, one we're all really excited for, should I say. So just before I dive into a few more questions, if you are watching on YouTube, you can drop your questions in the comment box on the right-hand side, and we'll try and get through as many as we can. We'll start with one from Daniel Gold, who has asked, in regards to the salary cap, does Martin think it will be harder to get players because we are based in London and that would mean higher wages?
I think there is a thing called London waiting. I do believe that, in terms of, if people work within any industry, obviously London's the most expensive place to live. But I feel that the salary cap is very workable for us. I think it's an absolute essential way forward for all football clubs in terms of how it's going to look in the future. It's going to mean that there's our wage bill will be lower, but so will everybody else's compared to what it's been previously. But there's, I think that you've got to, the players that count are the players who are 21 and over. I think we've got to be very proactive in the age group of 21 and under that don't count on the wage bill, but you still got to pay for them. It ain't as if they don't count and you don't pay for them. There's still money there that you have to lay out. But I think our connections with other clubs will become important. I think players have got a bit of a reality check in terms of, especially next summer, to say what they was earning previously will probably have to be reduced in some way. But that's how it's going to be for every player and every club. And for me, and it ain't so much our football club since Nigel and Kent have come in, but pre that, you look at the way the Italian, I've seen contracts with figures that would blow my brains in terms of what people were earning at Leyton Orient Football Club. And I know that other football clubs have done it like that. And them type of football clubs have got to be able to account to why we've gone to a salary cap, because they're the people that have made, if someone is spending 10 million at the top or £10,000 a week at the top, it squeezes on everybody else. This won't allow it. And I think what will happen in the end is the best coaches and the people that have got the imagination and the coaches to make sure that you get enough players there. Yeah, we're going to be on a little bit less salary cap. We're in London. Is it harder to someone to come to London than to go to Morecambe in terms of value you're going to get on a rented accommodation? Yes, it is more difficult. But for me, the salary cap will work for us, and we're embracing it, and we're starting to work towards it now because we have to.
Yeah.
Can I ask Martin a question about the salary cap?
Of course.
Martin, would you rather have a League One salary cap or a League Two salary cap?
Yeah, I mean the be all and end all. There's £1 million more. There's £1 million more.
Wouldn't you prefer to be in League One, Martin?
Yeah, there's £1 million more. And what you know, Kent, as well as I do, that the contracts that we offer on a 2-year basis will have both a 20% rise in them and a 20% fall in them in terms of if we went down, which God forbid it ever happens. But and if we go up, with each player will earn a 20%. So it's quite a good incentive to say to the players, the money you earn at the moment, if you want to keep on it, get us into League One.
When we go up, not if we go up, Martin. When we go up, sir. I don't know when it's going to be, but I don't think it's an if. It'll be a win someday.
All right,
cool. I just thought I'd ask. I wasn't sure.
Actually, a follow-up to that question, which might be interesting to put to yourself, Kent and Nigel, is Daniel said, do you not think the wage cap will stop very rich owners wanting to buy football clubs? So as from an owner's perspective, would that change things?
Let Kent go first.
I think it makes it more likely they want to buy a club. And the reason it makes it more likely they want to buy a club is they know what their top end risk is. The challenge that happens is that you are competing against other club owners who decide this is the year they're going to go for broke. And what they do is they go in and they spend an inordinate amount of money in a Moneyball style situation where they try to buy a promotion. And to compete with that is very difficult to do because you don't really have a level playing field. And I think this levels out the playing field. And I think it'll make it to where potential owners actually are more interested, because while they can't guarantee their revenue, they can at least guarantee a portion, and the biggest portion of the cost of all of the clubs in these particular leagues. So I think from an owner perspective, it actually makes it more enticing than it was before.
So I'd support everything that Kent said. And I think it was interesting. I went to a drinks party last Friday here in Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And I met a person who invested in Swansea City, small investor. And I said, so what do you think about it? He said, the football was fantastic. I love promotion and relegation. The standard and quality of it is brilliant, but I can't stand keep putting my hand in my pocket. So I've now invested in DC United, which if you don't know is the Washington team. And he said, the quality of football is nowhere near as it is in the UK, but I don't have to worry about losing money all the time. So I think that's a practical example of what Kent just said. I mean, the MLS, in my view, is leagues worse than what you see in England. But I truly think that we had to get our act together. And I was on another call last week where they said the people in England who are going to invest in football clubs are drying up because they want a profit. We're talking about sustainability, which means getting back to, if you like, flat. We're not talking about a profit yet. And we've shared all our numbers with you. This year, our budget was to lose $1 million. It's going to be probably $2.5 million. That is not sustainable. You need to find a way of getting back to flat. And we're going to do everything right. And it's not just cutting costs. I mean, another thing I read repeatedly is that Kent and I aren't willing to support Martin. I think Martin will be the first to say we've been very supportive, but we have to find a way of growing the revenue line, looking sensibly at cutting costs, because we want to sustain this club, which was the promise we made to the fans when we came in, for future generations.
As well, look, I think we've got to be careful of, or people come away from is the first thing that fans do when it ain't going so well is say, we'll put some more money in. That's always, why aren't the chairman putting this in a wank? The owner, Kent and Nigel, putting it. Be all and end all is that there's money they put in, to cover the hole that's there that we all know about. And it don't make. All right, I played for 18 years, so I've been on that gravy train, I suppose. I've been on that position where, I was earning money that maybe clubs that shouldn't have paid out to players. So, it may be a little bit harsh for me to say, well, it's about time we started to go sustainably. But unfortunately, my role has changed, and it makes sense to be sustainable. And I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. For us as a football club, our loss was coming down each year. Unfortunately, with COVID, that's stopped us in our tracks, and again, who's picked up the money and who's picked up the debt is Kent and Nigel. So look, it makes so much sense. I've seen so many owners like Kent Teague. Now, see, my cynical East London head says, how are people going to get around this? How are they? What loophole? Because whenever I played, I can remember in 1982, right, and a long time ago, in 1986, I moved clubs, and every player said to me, make sure you get an ex gratia payment. And I was going, well, what's an ex gratia payment? They said, well, that's what you get in your back pocket. That was in 1986. So when I went to Swindon Town, I got that ex gratia payment because that's how they got around it. Now, how are they going to in 2020? How are people going to try and cheat the system? Because there will be people that try, but I don't think there's a way of doing it.
I think it's worth saying, Danny, how many pages of point deductions are there now? I mean, it's pages and pages and pages. They've tried to look at everything, as Martin said, to make sure that if you do anything wrong, if you do like some clubs did last year, and we know the clubs like Macclesfield Town, Southend, if you don't pay the players, you get points deduction. And if you're seen to be breaching the formula, which is a much simpler formula than the previous one, there's all kinds of regulations, and the punishment isn't fines, it is point deductions.
There is no perfect system. Doesn't matter. No perfect system. So since there is no perfect system, then what's the goal? The goal is to bring together a team of players who plays really well together, that gets along with each other really well, complements each other really well, and wins, not draws. You know how I love the draw. Wins games of football. That's the goal. And that's what we're focused on, right? This sustainability model is built to make sure that we can win games of football indefinitely. Indefinitely. That's the goal. That my grandkids, which I don't have any yet, and people's grandkids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, they can all have the chance to enjoy Leyton Orient football as much as you do as a fan, because it's sustainable and it's indefinite in the end point at which we can continue to win football games. That's what it's about. And we want to move up in the leagues. We're ambitious. We want to move up. We went back to preseason earlier than anybody else. Why? Because we want to be in League One sooner rather than later. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, I'll stop.
Cheers, Ken. Couple of questions we've had. Just one that I've seen a few times, so I'll just answer it now. With regards to streaming, it's been asked, will away games be covered as well? And the simple answer is yes. Away games will be covered on our streaming platform, the exact same. You'll log into Leyton Orient TV, and we will have the studio for away games as well. So it won't just be home games. We'll have a team set up at the Rare Group Stadium on home games, which are offering the coverage all the same. So yeah, we will have away games covered. And an interesting one here, which someone might have given me the background on, but they've asked, are we looking at a profit being made from the pre and post game shows? Are we forgetting the last time an Orient owner sanctioned a TV show? Ken, you laughing?
Okay. Let me be clear. we're not trying to make a profit at Leyton Orient Football Club. We're just trying to break even, and we're trying to break even from a cash flow perspective. We don't have plans to, necessarily monetize a TV show or anything like that, but we are looking at ways to increase revenue from different perspectives. But I don't think we're going to use the pre and the post game show as a documentary drama filled way to sell advertising. Put it that way. Nigel, what do you think?
Well, no, you're right, and we want to make it engaging. I mean, the idea of streaming is this is a way of engaging our fans. I mean, it's a way for fans to be able to engage with the players, with the coaches, for the fans around the world to be able to watch Leyton Orient. And let me just go back. Before we bought the club, well before we bought the club, and this was probably in the regime, I'm not allowed to say the name, else I'll have to put money into the bucket for Christmas parties. But in the previous regime, I said to Matt Porter, I see the day when every Leyton Orient game will be streamed around the world. Never happened, mate. No one will ever approve it. Well, that's changed. The world has changed. Think how strong streaming has become, how strong the league has become. And here's an interesting number. I got some numbers from the EFL last week. 317 million people watched the EFL last season around the world. That shows what a great product it is. I mean, there's a lot of games around the world to compete. Cricket, American football, hockey, baseball, you go on. Nothing as good as our game. And that's why people like to watch it. Earlier this year, I went to see a surgeon, and we got chatting. He told me he spends $300 a month taking TV services for soccer around the world. There's a lot of people who do that. $300. Think about that. So I think we got a great game, we got a great product, and streaming is something we will monetize. But all we're doing is replacing the extra money that we're losing because of COVID and making sure that this club continues. And I just want to emphasize what Kent said. I'm never going to put pressure on Martin, Ross, or the team. All we want to do is get better every year. And I truly believe we came back to training early. We got a fantastic squad. I'm really confident we're going to do well this year.
Well, that would have left.
To add to what you just said there, Nigel, and say, I know you know these figures, but for the benefit of fans, nearly a third of our income comes solely from match day. So that's, season tickets, match tickets, retail, the programs we discussed, concessions, buying a beer, etc. So, effectively for any games we do have behind closed doors, streaming becomes pretty much the only revenue stream during that time. So that's how crucial it is, and we're not going to apologise for over promoting it. As I said before, we're going to lean on every fan possible to start spreading that word more than they've ever done before. It's a good time to be proud of the club for everything that we've done, not just in our history, but over the last 6 months as a club. We stand proud with what we've done, and now's the time for us to really beat that drum across London, across the world.
Cheers, Danny. Well, one of the questions was to ask if there's any expectations set in terms of target in the league table. I think Nigel's probably answered that one quite clearly. So what I probably will do.
Here's the thing, Luke, just so you know, the person to ask the question, where do we think we're going to end up on the league table, is not on this call. His name is Ross. We need to ask Ross what he and the players think, where they think they're going to finish. And they are the best indicator. Listen, we've had that conversation. We had that conversation with a guy named Justin, and Justin told us we were crazy. His number was way less, higher in the table than ours was. So we'll get that from Ross at some point. Ross will set the expectation. He's pretty close to doing that already. And I think it's going to be a very good season for us, no matter how you slice it. Here's the thing about Leyton Orient that I know, just from my very short time with you guys, It's gonna be dramatic, baby. Just sit back and watch. It's gonna be dramatic. Whatever happens, it's gonna be dramatic. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have a great season. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
And for me, Luke, there's a very unusual. I remember sitting down with Kent or Nigel first, and then Kent after 3 and a bit years ago, and there was none of this. I want promotion now or today, or we're going to get. Are we going to go up this year? There was a model to be built, from where we were, and let's be honest about it, the place was in an absolute mess. But there was a 6-year plan put into place, because they asked me what I thought we could be, and I went back to what I knew, and what I knew was when I was managing the club, we was a League One club that was very comfortable as a League One club. So my answers to both Kent and Nigel is why I don't see no reason why we can't get back to being that League One club that was the case when I left in 2009. And I didn't think that was too much to ask. I thought that was fair. If they turned around to me and said, we think we can go to the Championship, I would turn around and say, possibly. And I would point out Bournemouth and other clubs. But my real answer is, I think that we are where we are as a club is that League One club. But we had to get out of the National League, which I think was the biggest step. I really honestly believe that was the biggest and hardest step to do. I don't think the step from League Two to League One is as big as that, because of, if I say Wrexham have been stuck for 13 years, other clubs have been stuck in that league, and you can get stuck and you can get in a rut. We got out of there in 2 years, which was ahead of schedule. But I look at figures, it's a case of where we finished in the first year. Did we improve that in the second year? Yeah. Did we improve that in the third year? Yeah. And now we need to move on. And I know the club's set up to be that League One club that we all talked about, but we've got to get that step to be able to get out of this league, where there was only, one team went up and one team went up via the playoffs in the league that we just got out of. We've got twice as much hope this year, because 3 teams go up and one team go out the playoffs. So there's 4 teams. So we got, a lot better chance of doing it. I believe that we will be better than last year. I believe that we will be in and around where we need to be. And what I do believe is, when I see the club from top to bottom, I know the infrastructure that's been put in place. This COVID situation, I think has proven the strength of the club, actually. Because if you have got a club that is weak and is not well run, COVID's going to knock you down and kill you off. They ain't going to do that to this football club. I think it just proves to us how strong we are actually in a position to be able to cope with it. It's something that none of us expected. But as Kent said, with Leighton Orient, expect the unexpected. So we dealt with COVID, and we will move on.
Thank you, Martin. I think we are probably looking in the realms of wrapping up now. So I don't know if anyone else wanted to give us any final thoughts.
No, I'll just summarise it by saying thanks to our fans. I truly believe that we're going to have a good season. Finishing on that point, it's going to be difficult. Are we going to have fans? Are we not going to have fans? It's going to change. I mean, while we've been on this call, the other team I adore, Miami Dolphins, they announced they're going to have 13,000 fans for their first home games. That's in a stadium that holds 65,000. So that gives you some idea of how difficult Danny's job of calculating in our stadium is. I think, you've got the concern that there's going to be a spike up when winter comes back. So that's got to be something we've got to sort of grapple with. Could we have players who have the COVID? We're doing everything we can, and I'd like to stress to our fans, washing hands, wearing masks, all the disciplines are very important. I think we're going to have a year where players are going to be stretched. And by the way, Martin, we didn't cover it. the question keeps coming up on the forum. Where's Louis Dennis?
Oh yeah, Louis Dennis pulled a thigh muscle, had a soreness in his thigh muscle, doing some shooting last Monday. We treated for a couple of days, Keaton treated for a couple of days, went for a scan, and he's got a grade 2 tear within that thigh muscle. Let me say to you this year, Louis Dennis was looking really, really, really sharp, really sharp. He was doing some extra work with Matt Harold, actually, and the strikers. So Louis, but yeah, it's nothing, as Keaton said to me today, it's nothing to worry about too much. He reckons from today, he was talking 10 to 14 days more, where we've got to be careful with it. But again, it's one of them injuries. But I know there's some subplot that there's something going on between Louis and Ross and whatever. It's the biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard. Louis is fine. Louis a lot happier person at the training ground because he wants to play and be part of. And if I you know, little game we play, and I play on my own, I don't really play with anyone else, is that if I had to pick a team a week ago for the first game of the season, Louis Dennis was actually in that team. That was in my team. So I don't know if he'd been in Ross's team or anyone else's team, but he was looking really, really sharp, and he will be back in 7 to 10 days. 10 to 14 days is what Keaton said to me today.
Okay, so just to finish what I was saying, I'm excited. I think streaming is going to be a very big deal this year. We got to expect the unexpected all the time. I want to place on record my thanks to Danny and his team, Martin and his team, the fans, my fellow board members. This has been a really, really, really difficult summer. But everyone's worked incredibly hard. I would have to say, really, with no breaks, just to get to where we are, and we're excited to get back playing. So we look forward to keeping you updated as the season goes on. Luke, back to you.
Yeah, well, I think that's all wrapped up then. We will have some more, as Danny alluded to earlier, some more information will come most likely tomorrow regarding streaming for the season and how people can get involved and how people can start purchasing their streaming passes. So keep an eye on the O's social media and website for that one. And yeah, until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks,
Well.
everybody. Up
Thank
the
you.
O's. Up the O's.